welcome to the show. I'm here with my wonderful friend Andrea, and I decided while she was here that I would tell my story.
Drum roll. Drum roll. Finally, what you've all been waiting for.
Yeah, well, anyway, we'll see how exciting it is. But the reason I decided I wanted to finally tell it was, well, first of all, I want to say why I shied away from it. I never wanted to make my videos to be about me. I wanted to try to help people as best I could, and I know what witnesses say about people who make videos or who speak out against them, as if we're all trying to become famous or make something of ourselves. And I never was like that. I never wanted attention to me. I wanted it to be about what my message is. Mm-hmm. But I have to say that one of the things that really helped to wake me up was looking at other people's stories. And I think people want to know.
They do. They do want to know. I get asked that question all the time, even by actually a lot of non-witnesses. They find out you're a witness. They're like, you were a witness? And then they want to know what happened and how did you leave? Because so many people are aware of what it's like.
Yeah, so I thought
everyone wants to know.
Anyway, so that's why I'm making this video. So I'm just going to get right into it because there's a lot to say. And I just want to... Okay, so... Okay, so my parents, my father is from Guyana and in South America, and my mother's from Austria, and they both immigrated as somewhat children to Canada. And my father was Catholic, and my mother was raised as a Lutheran, and neither one was very happy with the religion that they were part of. And they had Mormons call on them, and they actually really liked what the Mormons had to say. And I remember my mom said that she asked them, you know, when you pray, do you feel like anyone's listening to you? And they went on about some testimony, as if, oh, it's a testimony to them when they pray for something and then it happens. And they said, this is what you need to do. You need to pray to God, you know, on your knees and na-na-na. And so my parents did that. And then they said they had nothing but Jehovah's Witnesses call on them. The Mormons never called back. So I could very well to this day be a Mormon, or more like an ex-Mormon. But because I was determined to be an ex-something, clearly. Anyway, so then the witnesses started calling on my parents. And it was in 1969. I was just a baby when they got baptized. And so I was always been in the organization. And it was before 1975, and so this is when there was this push to get baptized and all this stuff. Interestingly enough, after my mother was baptized, they almost disfellowshipped her because I have two older brothers, but after I was born, my mom developed, or while I was in her, while she was pregnant, she developed gestational diabetes, and they told her you really shouldn't have any more kids, and so she wanted to have her tubes tied, and the elders wanted to disfellowship her. And she took this as a sign because she was told that after you get baptized, Satan will start pressuring you and do some kind of a test. And this is what she felt was, that the elders were trying to disfellowship her.
Wow, that's wild. Yeah. So let me just get this straight. So she wanted to have her tubes tied, which, by the way, I do remember that wasn't allowed. I forgot about that. That was a long time ago. I think you were allowed to do it if they were already in there doing something, or it was like right after childbirth, but you weren't allowed to have it as a separate procedure. There was some weird thing about that. You could probably look it up. But that means then, I just want to say to that, that would mean then that those brothers, those elders were channeling Satan. Then, if they were being used, they were being tools of Satan. Like how does that logic even work?
It doesn't. So the elders are being used by Satan to test my mother. To get her to be disfellowshipped. It doesn't make
makes zero sense.
Ridiculous.
0 sense.
But anyways, okay, so a good point. I remember when you said that to me the other day when I was telling you about my story.
Yeah.
Anyways, so then 1975, of course, came and went, right? Nothing happened. And all I remember with the whole thing was waking up one morning feeling that, the world didn't end,
Right.
Whatever that meant to me as a child, a few years old. But anyways, life carried on. But what had happened was my father had quit his government job. I've said this before in other videos, but I'll just say it again here in case you don't know this. He had a very good government Government of Canada job, and he quit it to pioneer. And then when that, of course, the end didn't come, and he had a family of 5, and he needed another job. And the only work he could get after that was janitorial work. He couldn't get his job back. So he worked as a janitor, which is fine. It's just that it's hard manual labor now. Now you've got a guy this is all he can do, and it's a real shame. And he never complained about it. He was an amazing father. But anyways, that was a bummer. And then we ended up having to sell our home.
Yeah.
And
can I just add one thing? Because
yeah.
I think there's one thing you mentioned to me
Okay.
that about how your father then couldn't have privileges in the hall because he was he didn't tell that part. Okay, this is the irony upon ironies.
Yeah.
You must
not
share
that
this
he
part.
not that my father wanted privileges. My
No.
dad was a very humble man, like me. See,
Why are we laughing?
Because it's not humble to say you're humble. That's
Right,
the
right,
funny part. But anyways, yeah. So we ended up moving all the way to the West Coast because houses were much cheaper there, and then my father could only work as a janitor, and he got a really good job working for the school board, but cleaning a high school. But so we had all the dental benefits and all that stuff, paid fairly well, but he had to work nights. He started work when all the kids went home. He started like at 4 o'clock or whatever until like 10 o'clock at night. And he couldn't go to the midweek meetings then, right? So he missed the book study, he missed the service, the Wednesday, Thursday, whatever night it was, I kept moving it, meetings and ministry school. And he could only make it to the Sunday meetings. And so for that, they had him as a ministerial servant, but they wanted him as an elder, but they could never make him as an elder because he missed too many meetings. And so that's the irony.
So ironic.
And they always kind of made him feel bad about it. You're missing meetings. But you know what? The only reason he's in this predicament to begin with,
because he listened to you in the first place.
That's
to
the
your
irony,
untruths.
the lies,
the dim lights.
the 1975 debacle, But a lot of people suffered. It just shows that my family suffered. It wasn't not a horrible suffering, but you know what? It was detrimental to my family.
It impacted your family.
Definitely. My whole life could be very different to this day, if it wasn't for this lie of 1975. Anyway, so I'm not trying to be a whiner, but I'm just stating a fact here. Anyway, so here we are now in the late 1970s, and we're living now in Victoria, British Columbia, in a congregation that was quite a bit different from my last hall. The wife swapping, the elder wife swapping. That was funny. There were a lot of weird things going on in the hall. I found it was quite a bit of a different spirit in the hall. We had a very strong spirit in Ottawa, and this one, like I said, we had like half the hours. People kind of showed up at meetings. They would take a recess break during the meetings. I found that kind of weird.
I remember that.
Did they have that there
I
too?
remember in Ontario. No, that was in Ontario. I totally forgot about that.
We'd all go outside. It was
okay,
so
but
weird.
I'm a wee bit older than
Are
you,
we
so
to the meeting?
maybe everybody did that back then.
I just thought it was kind of weird. But we'd all go outside and people would, I don't know. And, but yeah, and then there were some young people in the hall that tried to get a Watchtower study going on a Friday night. Just for the young people. I wasn't invited, I was too young, but I have 2 older brothers and they were invited to this thing. Okay. And they quickly kiboshed that. The society heard about this. No, you can't study the Watchtower. You can get together and have a party. You can get together.
No, even the parties were still...
But you could get together and watch movies. You could get together and get together. And I don't know, you eat popcorn or whatever, pin the tail on the donkey or something. But but you couldn't get together and study the Bible. You couldn't get together and study the Watchtower. That was
outside the confines of that or a family study.
Which was really
kind of interesting. No room for discussion. Well, they don't want you thinking, so there you go.
And then they tried to get this junior pioneer program in our congregation.
Oh,
where okay, so an auxiliary pioneer could get 60 hours a month, and a regular could get 90.
Right.
Or that's what it was at that time. And they had this junior pioneer for kids who weren't baptized. They said, well, we want them to feel encouraged too, so let them put in, like, I think it was 20 hours. Was with the encouragement to get 20 hours, the goal. And the society clamped down on that too. They said, this isn't something we sanction, and you shouldn't be doing your own thing as a congregation.
And they should have implemented that worldwide. That would have been smart.
But. Which again is kind of weird. Why not? It's an encouragement.
No, follow the party line.
Yeah. So things like that happen. Around the age of 11 or 12, I wanted to bring this up because it's kind of weird. I developed like a stuttering problem, which I know seems hard to believe because I'm a talker. I've always my whole life been chastised for talking. You talk too much. You talk too fast. And in kindergarten, I was, what was the word they used? Boisterous. I was boisterous because I talk a lot. And oddly enough, I developed this stuttering problem. And I don't know where it came from. It came totally out of the blue, but picture yourself in an organization like the Jehovah's Witnesses where you're encouraged, or in my case, I had to. My parents said, you have to give a comment every meeting. You have to be part of the ministry school. You have to preach to people in service. And when you're put on the spot and you've got a stuttering problem that nobody knows about, I never told a soul about this. I just suffered in silence or whatever. It's really difficult. You've got your hand up to give a comment and you're terrified that you're going to go, stammer into the microphone like some idiot. And it terrified me that I don't know, like, who cares, right? Who cares? But I was terrified that I was going to, and I had a talk with my best friend at the time, who was the same age as me. We were 9 or 10, whatever, 10 or, well, I think I was about 11 when this happened. She had a talk and I was her householder. And we're on the platform and, we were practicing the talk at her house. And she had me asking a question that said something like, did you study for the meeting or something like that? Okay, let's say that's what it was. Okay. And it was the word did I had a problem with. I could say almost every word, but whenever it came to the word did, I'd go, it came out weird. And when we were practicing it, we're timing it, right? Because it had to be 5 minutes long, these talks. And every time we practiced it, we did it, I kept messing up the line. And she'd go, stop messing. She got all mad, stop messing up the line, And I didn't want to tell her because I was embarrassed. And so I realized maybe I could switch the wording around and say, I don't know how I worded something. Like instead of saying, did you study for the meeting? I said, oh, were you able to study for the meeting? I switched it around. And then that worked. And then I realized, I could just switch my words around. And then I don't have to, and avoid the words that cause me trouble, So, but anyways, all this to say that it was a real encumbrance, with talks and commenting. It terrified me. And I remember at the book study, the brother would have us, take turns reading scriptures. We'd go around in a circle. And whenever it came to me, I'd try to figure out which scripture was the one I had to read. I'd be terrified.
My mom had that problem too. She had to ask the book study conductor not, like she'd go into anxiety attacks. She couldn't comment at meetings for a while. She couldn't do talk. She could never do that. She'd tell him, please skip me over. And then she felt like an idiot because she's saying, what are people going to think, that I've had privileges removed because they have to skip over me? Yeah. And that sent her into more of a tizzy. So it's kind of interesting. There's some, that's what that's all about.
And then and then the whole bathroom problem was another thing. I'm just gonna say there was a bathroom problem. All it was we had this book study it was like a farm-like place. It was a very rural area, and they had well water and all that. And it was the same time period. I was 11 years old. I remember when at the same time I developed the stuttering problem. I had this bathroom situation where we'd go to the book study, and to get to the bathroom, you had to go through the entire house, and there was a pipe in the middle of the downstairs basement where we had the book study. Pipe. And whenever I went to the bathroom, or whenever you had to go to the bathroom, I could hear people flushing, and it was like this embarrassment. So I remember thinking, I hope I don't have to go to the bathroom. And of course, every time we had a book study, I'd have to go to the bloody bathroom. Because I was terrified of having to go and have everyone go, ha, 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 flush, flush, flush.
Yeah. You peed.
And anyways, I remember thinking people must have thought, this stupid idiot, this 11-year-old girl is clearly not paying attention because it's boring, which it was, of course. But that as if I was, because you see kids getting up and going to the bathroom because they're clearly not interested, right? It's boring as hell. Well, it was that same time period. I don't know what was going on in my head, but clearly there was something. I was a very frightful child. I mean, I went to bed every night with my Raggedy Ann doll. And I used to put her arm around me because I was so afraid that if someone tried to kill me, they'd shoot her instead and not shoot me. So anyways, there's all that, right? And I don't know so all this to say that these fears I had, I don't know how much of the JW organization it had to do with that. I really don't know. I never went to a psychiatrist about this. But they came into my life, these fears, and then they disappeared as oddly as they came. And then they reappeared around the age of, 17 or so. Again, in an odd way, out of the blue, I started having this problem again. And then they disappeared. So I don't know. It was kind of weird.
And then you're never encouraged to get help for anything, ever. They really, at one point, I know now they're a little too afraid to tell people not to get help, but I know one of my friends that had been sexually abused, nothing to do with the congregation. This had to do with an incident before she got into the religion. But she had a lot of trauma, and she was seeing a therapist, and that really, they almost gave her a hard time about it. And then the group therapy thing, wow, they were really not thrilled about that. And I know I went to group therapy once too, but that's for another story. But they were kind of, I think I was pioneering then too, and they weren't too thrilled.
No, because they're afraid.
Codependency.
They're afraid that you're going to learn something, but you're not going to want to go back to the organization or something. Yeah. You're going to be too smart.
Yeah.
But okay, so then at the age of 14, there was a lot of pressure for me to get baptized because only good people need to get baptized. The end is coming. the 1914 generation is going to, how did it go? That they're not going to die before the end comes,
pass
right?
away. Just like that cover of that article, they always show that it says this generation will not pass away. And like every single person pretty much guaranteed on that magazine cover, unless they're 120 years old, are literally all dead.
Oh,
now.
they are dead.
Those ones
for
are
a
dead,
fact,
right?
For a
Yeah,
fact.
those
Yeah, because
ones
somebody
are.
went and did that. They showed all
Did the
year.
research of them all when they died.
So we were told that those people aren't going to die. You have to get baptized or else you're going to be killed, right?
Yeah.
So then I developed a stuttering problem. No, just kidding. Anyway, so everyone's getting baptized. My best friend was getting baptized, and I figured I better get baptized, because I remember if someone's 18, they'd be like, well, why aren't they baptized?
Yeah, that was like too old. It was like you were...
What's wrong
like
with
the
you?
spinster of baptisms or non-baptism. If you weren't baptized by the time you were 18, there was like a big problem then.
But realizing that my parents could equally have just become Mormons, the bottom line is this business of baptizing children really bothers me, that the witnesses are doing now, because I know I was 14, I wasn't 8. But had I been raised as a Mormon, I would be a Mormon today or an ex-Mormon. And so anyways, that really bothers me, because at the age of 14, you're not ready. And let's face it, if you were a child, let's say of that age, and you said to your parents, I'd like to become a Mormon, even though you're raised as a Jehovah's Witness, your parents would say, what do you think they'd say?
Are you kidding? No, absolutely not.
And that
you're not old enough to make that decision on your own. You don't have enough information, etc.
You're too young.
Yeah,
exactly.
You're too young.
So how is it that I was old enough to make a lifelong commitment to this organization? But anyways, I got baptized at 14. I felt it was the right thing to do. The end's going to come, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's what that happened. And that was a real bummer that I did that. Because I admire so much when I hear people now when they say that they didn't get baptized and they didn't believe it was right. But I believed it lock, stock, and barrel. This is the truth.
And so did I. I was 16 when I got baptized. But here's the thing. We were not given all the information. If I knew what I know now, there's no way I would have gotten baptized. And you make that commitment as a minor. It's not a legal contract, for one thing, and then add on to that you're a minor when it happens. Like one of my friends who had married someone who wasn't a witness. She's shunned to this day by her parents, and her husband said to the mom, "Let me get this straight. Someone can get their driver's license, and you can't legally do this or that till you're 18, and then there's some things you'd be 21. You're not allowed to do." And those things you can kind of get out of later if you make some kind of commitment or whatever. But a baptism, you can get baptized as a child, and you are held and punished for that for eternity. Yeah. How can you let a child or a teenager even make that huge a decision that's going to completely alter their life at that age? How can you hold them really accountable on some level? And again, I would like to add, also, because you're not given all the information. Ultimately, no matter how old you are, you're just not given all the information.
But they're happy to do this. I mean,
they're still doing it. We still see
so.
pictures of recent conventions where kids are like 10. You can tell they're 10 years older, at the most 12, but it looks younger even, some of them. Yeah. They're all proudly or on Twitter or Instagram posting pictures of, this child got baptized.
And how proud they are.
They're still doing it, and they're so proud of them.
Yeah. So that happened, and then when I got a little bit older, I met somebody that, actually I was that age, I knew this guy, but he was in my hall. There were lots of guys I liked, in my hall and different congregations. And sadly, I ended up marrying this person. But I want to say, just back it up, there was a guy who was not a witness, who I really, really liked, and who really, really liked me, but I ended it because... he wasn't a witness, right? I felt, and good for him to be married. It's not good to be married to a witness. You're married to someone in a cult, and it's not good. So good for him that he did. But I really liked him, and I ended up marrying, somebody who was a witness, but he wasn't strong in the faith. And I guess I did come from a very strong family. My dad, we always went in service. We always did family studies, and we were at all the meetings and all that stuff. I auxiliary pioneered after I got baptized, and, for the summers when I wasn't in school and all that stuff. And what ended up happening, though, just to back it up a tiny bit, is to say that this is where things kind of went really bad. I had a very bad courtship with this guy. And I don't know why I married him to this day, but the bottom line is, he and I started, hanging out a lot, and we would smooch it up, and we'd park, and we'd kiss, and we'd, of course, things got more escalated, and I was prepared to stop at a certain point, where you're like, okay, this is far enough, but he wasn't, and he really pressured me, and I'm not going to blame it on him. I mean, the bottom line is, it takes two to tango. I get that. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying there was an enormous amount of pressure from him to, go all the way. And and we did, but of course, and then after that we had our there was a district convention in Vancouver, and I felt horrible. I mean, I was like guilt ridden.
You were sick.
And I was sick with guilt. I sat through the convention, my heart racing, horrible feeling. I just felt awful, and this feeling carried over for years. I mean, because I knew that if I went to the elders about it, which is what I felt I needed to do, then we'd get disfellowshipped. I was okay with me being disfellowshipped, but I wasn't okay with him being disfellowshipped, because I knew I'd come back. I didn't think he would, and I felt like he'll never come back and he'll be killed at Armageddon. So I was prepared to suck it up, and I felt like I could work it out with Jehovah. So every day I'd pray to Jehovah, probably about 4 times a day, I'd say. Once before every meal, and then once before bed. And I would just pour my heart out to Jehovah, please forgive me, horrible, and this and that, and help, my ex, now my ex, but help him to strengthen him, and. Anyways, we ended up getting married, not in a Kingdom Hall, because we decided we shouldn't, although nobody knew. And maybe people figure that out when they see that you're not getting married in a Kingdom Hall. There's something up. But anyways, we never even asked to do it.
Yeah.
And then about a year after we got married, he decided that we should confess. And I was thrilled. I thought, this is great, So we did, and the elders didn't disfellowship us, I guess, because we got married. And we're just gonna
Ding dong! It's the
pause
Avon
there.
lady.
Okay, so we're back. Sorry, there was someone at the door there.
Yeah.
Wasn't a witness.
Yeah,
It wasn't a Mormon.
That's what I
either.
thought it was for a minute, and then should
That'd be something.
have kept recording.
Yes. Okay. So they didn't disfellowship us. They just took our privileges away, and we couldn't comment, and we could still go in service though. But anyways, I felt like a free bird after that. I felt so great after they said that. And they made, the part of the punishment was that we had to go to my parents and tell them that we'd, strapped it on, or whatever the expression is. And then we strapped it on. And then we're supposed to go to his parents.
I think that was a strap on.
No, there wasn't a strap on. And we had to go to his parents and tell them. And then we had to go to the brother, it was an elder who married us. We had to go to him. And what ended up happening, and I was prepared to do all that. I was sure, okay, we'll do that. And then let the elders know when we'd done that. And then they kind of felt that was our punishment or something. So my ex said, how about you go to your mom and dad? I'll go to mine. His dad wasn't a witness, but he'll tell his mom, supposedly. And then he got her to tell the elder. So I was like, what? That's not right. He's, let's do it. This is all he was prepared to do. So he's the head of the house. And I couldn't force him to do anything otherwise. I can't force him to come with me, right?
Not.
So I told my parents, and my parents were fantastic about it. I was crying because I felt, humiliated, of course. And they were like, oh, it's okay. And they didn't want to hear any details. They were like, it's okay. We love you. It's fine. Everything's fine now. And apparently he told his mom. Apparently the elder found out. I wonder now to this day if he ever did anything, because I wasn't there, right? But But anyways, so then we told the elders it's all been done, and they were like, okay, and that was that. And but and I really hoped that he would do more spiritually after that, but he never did. He was just really, I did. I became really gung ho after that. That's what really sort of set me off flying with pioneering and all that. And I was so happy to anyways, I just felt free now. That those 3 years of guilt I had were just awful. Right. It eats away at you. And I went out, and I flew out to see a friend of mine who lived in Toronto. So that's like 3-hour flight. And I just want to say this one story, which is interesting. We were out in service one day, and we met a man in the territory who was saying about how he's got a friend who's a lawyer, and he knows about all these sex crimes that Jehovah's Witnesses are involved in.
What year was this?
It would have been about 1995.
Huh, interesting. Okay.
And I said, I don't think that's true, And he goes, no, it's true. And I said, well, how come this will be all over the news? And he said, well, because they put your organization puts gag orders on it.
Non-disclosure agreements.
Yeah. They
settle.
They settle out of court.
Yep, a lot of them. Yep.
And then that was the end of it. And no one ever hears of it, and that's what they do. And I still didn't believe him, of course, because I'm so indoctrinated. There's nothing, of course, JW.org does nothing wrong. And if there ever is anyone who does anything wrong, that's just a bad seed,
It's just
right?
an isolated incident. It's all isolated incidences.
But it's something I filed away. Somehow it came back later
there.
on, right?
Yeah.
In my thinking.
It does.
But we had a very crapola marriage, I'll just say. I was married to someone who, just very cold. He wasn't a bad person. If you met him, you'd probably like him. But as a husband, he just was not kind at all. Mental abuse. He felt that there's never a reason to say anything nice to me. My nickname was a lard ass, even though I'm very thin and very fit. And it was very, he thought it was funny. He'd be like, lard ass, get me coffee. Lard ass, get me tea. It was his, I don't know. He and I said to him, how come you never...
Cruel. That's cruel behavior. That's psychological. It's cruel behavior.
Well, I remember saying, how come you don't ever say anything nice to me? Because I worked really hard to be a good wife. I mean, I did. And I know, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but when our marriage did end and when I left him, he, a couple of years later, wrote me an email. Out of the blue, I got this email at work. And he said to me, I am very sorry for what happened to you and having any part in it. And he goes, and you were a great wife. In all capital letters. So I know that I worked really hard, especially because I wanted him to become a better witness. And I prayed every night for Jehovah to help him. And I tried to make it work. And I made sure I did everything I could to make the house clean. And I was still working and I was trying to pioneer. And he never supported any of that. In fact, he tried to make my life difficult because he said, I don't support your pioneering. He didn't agree with any of it because he felt like by pioneering I was working less, right? I was working half-time, then I cut my job to a half-time position. But I was still making enough money to support myself. But he made sure that even though he was living very well off of his job, he made sure that he didn't help me at all. I mean, I was eking by. So he'd be buying all kinds of nice things for himself and I had nothing, right?
Yeah. And here, if she'd had a husband who wasn't even a witness, even if he didn't agree with it, who does that to somebody else and to your spouse? It's...
Yeah, it was just very weird. I mean, the elders even called him a dud. But they never, they offered to help. They said, oh, we know you have it hard and na. But I come to the meeting many times in tears because he'd say, oh, I'll be there, and I'll make sure supper's ready. And I had all the books ready and we're all ready to go. I'd even underline his watchtower to make it look like he had studied it. Yeah, wow. I would study mine and then I'd underline his so he didn't feel embarrassed.
So he'd know where the answers were.
But he wouldn't show up. He just... and then he just kind of, I'd have to leave by myself. And many times, I mean, there were many tears at the beginning of the marriage. But he didn't care. He'd say, I don't want you to use your tears again, to get me to try to change who I am. So anyways, I learned to just kind of get on with my life, which is kind of sad because you're married to this person. But yeah. I remember thinking that, okay, so if this was the kooky way I thought, that if Jehovah decides to kill him at Armageddon, then then that means that Jehovah saw nothing good in him to preserve his life.
Right.
So I felt like I have no control over that, but I kept praying to change for Jehovah to soften his heart somehow. And of course that never helped, never happened. And I felt that if he did make it into the new system, then he'd be perfect. Right? We'd be working our way to perfection. So I felt like it was a win-win. Either if he gets stricken down, not my fault, and if he gets preserved, I always tried to bring him into the new system however I felt I could because of that scripture, wives, how do you know that you can't save your husband or something like that. So anyways, I tried and it just wasn't a good marriage. Like I said, he tried hard to make things not work for me, never there to help me. But I, on the other hand, began regular pioneering and I loved it. I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't love being a Jehovah's Witness. I did. I was one of those weird people, I think, that actually enjoyed going door to door, because I liked helping people. I liked talking about what I believe was a good hope for the future. I was right into it. I love my Pioneer book. Yeah, you are too. That's why we're a team.
No, anything we do, if we believe it, we're all in.
Yeah, I remember with Pioneer School, I was so excited to get my Pioneer book.
Yeah.
And I was just right. I even had in the shower. I brought my songbook in there.
Oh my goodness!
I love
singing in the shower.
I was singing in the shower. I loved. I made a Kingdom Melodies Greatest Hits tape that I put in my car for service.
Of course you did.
I loved it. I actually like the melodies, which is weird. And even to this day, I'm learning piano. And even there are some songs, I'm still not a good piano player, but I'm working towards some of the Kingdom Melodies that I still, even though, because I still like some of them.
Okay.
You know, I know it's weird. It's
all
weird.
right.
But,
play whatever you want.
But I did
You're allowed to.
I remember thinking, okay, did you ever feel that you were lucky to be a Jehovah's Witness? Like, out of all the religions in the world, how did I fall ass backwards into the true religion? Did you ever feel that way? No, you didn't.
I've always felt like this heaviness right inside my heart, actually, that it was a heavy burden. So I felt like if a person was supposed to learn the truth and come into it, that it would just happen no matter what. But no, I did not feel lucky. I felt almost cursed at some points.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
never
lucky.
felt, and again, I never shared that. Nobody knows. I mean, you all know that now, and I shared some of that, my story now. I didn't.
I felt very lucky. I felt like, how did I end up in the truth? You know, I just loved it. I loved going to meetings. I loved service. I had a filing cabinet at home of all the different ways to help people, different articles that I found from Kingdom Ministries. I'd photocopy them and highlight them. And I don't know. I lived every second of every day, and I never felt guilty. I knew a lot of people said, oh, I feel guilty. The meetings make me feel guilty, and I'm never doing enough. And I was like, I never felt that way because I was giving 150%. And like I went to bed every night with a good conscience because I felt like I'm doing as much as I possibly can, you know?
You know what's funny? I did too, except I guess for me, I felt like, but it's still not enough. Like you're still not good enough, even though I knew I was doing all I could. And then now you look at it, all the stuff you did means nothing because now everybody just shuns you anyway and treats you like you're a piece of garbage and call you mentally diseased. So nobody cares. Nobody appreciates it.
Yeah.
Long term. It's like, oh, you're done. Whatever.
Yeah. But around 1996, I started developing some health problems. My left knee went totally numb, and it was weird. I thought, I just thought funny or something. But it wouldn't get better. Like hours later, my knee is still numb. Like that feeling when you sit on your foot goes numb.
Yeah.
And then after a few minutes, it feels normal again. Well, this wasn't getting better. And it was like, oh, I thought this is kind of weird. Then I started Googling it, and it said it could be a brain tumor. It could be, I was like, what? So that freaked me out, and I went to my doctor, and he said, yeah, it could be a brain tumor. And I'm like, what? I was expecting him to say, get out of here, you know? But no, it could be, it could be MS, multiple sclerosis, it could be a brain tumor. Anyways, and he's like, yeah, we're going to test you for all those things. So it took like a year of testing, and nothing came out normal. Everything came out normal. But anyways, long story short, they diagnosed me with multiple sclerosis. And that was a bummer. Because, I would develop numbness like in my left arm. It would go completely numb. I mean, I couldn't even go like this. Like you're supposed to, like I would be like, ugh, but about a month later it came back, and then, I can normal again. But anyways, I'd have these attacks, and they were very frightening. And I didn't know, I kind of felt like the writing's on the wall. I wouldn't be able to keep pioneering, and that really upset me.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, what am I going to do with my life? I'm not happy in my marriage. I felt very unhappy at home, and this was what was giving me happiness in life. And I just kind of got depressed. I took some time off work. I took some time off the meetings. I needed time just to think. And it was during this time period that I started going online, and I just would chat with people, like whoever, girls, guys. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just having fun. I was learning French, and I was learning it online. And I would look for people who spoke French, and I was kind of practicing with them. And what ended up happening was I ended up meeting different guys, right? Because this is at a time when not a lot of women were online, it seemed. It was a lot of guys around this time. Picture like Windows 95 was a big deal, and this was like soon thereafter.
I remember those so well.
Yeah, there was a lot. Anyways, yeah, so I was online, and all these guys are saying really nice things about me. Oh, you're so pretty, or you're nice, or you're this, or you're fun, And I'm not used to that, right? I mean, people would say nice things to me. You know, guys would see you and whistle maybe or something. But I wasn't used to being bombarded with all this because I had a husband who called me lard ass and nothing nice, right?
Sure.
And it just felt really nice to have people say nice things to you. So I kind of gravitated to, oh, that's nice. And then one day I met a guy who started like crossing the line, you know, saying things that were not appropriate. And I didn't know what to say. I was kind of like, you know, and I kind of, you know, but I have to say I was intrigued by what this guy was saying. And I don't know. Anyways, long story short,
you were finally getting some acknowledgement and attention, and someone being nice to you.
Oddly enough, one of the ministerial servants who was a friend of my ex said in the congregation, said to him, you know, you should pay attention to your wife. You got a nice wife. And he goes, and if you don't, she's going to leave you for someone who does. Which,
irony.
Yeah, ironic, eh? But anyways, and that is exactly what happened. I met different guys online, and I started chatting with them, and one thing led to another, and some of the conversation was a bit racy, but I had no intention. I don't really know what I was doing, to be honest with you, with my life, because I didn't care. I mean, I lived my whole life for the organization and for everything I was told to do. I was a good kid. I pioneered. I was on the platform all the time at the conventions. Yeah. People were coming into the organization because of me, but I was studying with people who actually were coming. People I worked with were coming to meetings and studying with me. And I don't know, I felt like I was making a difference in people's lives. I was helping them. And then I went to this depression, and I don't know, I just felt like I didn't know where my life was going. I had this illness I had no control over.
And just to reiterate, she had not physically met or been in person. We better say that with... You know, with this online, it was simply online communication. That was it. There was nothing more.
And no intention of meeting anybody. Yeah, I didn't intend to end my marriage. I didn't intend to meet anybody. It was just kind of, but I didn't care where it was going. I don't know what I was thinking. It was really weird. But I didn't try to hide it either, because what happened was my ex and I and another couple who were witnesses, we all went to Vancouver for the weekend for a hockey game or something. And he said something really nasty about me in front of this other couple, something that wasn't even true, something about the bedroom, okay? Something really stupid that I thought was really, really inappropriate. And I said, we never fought. We weren't a couple that fought at all. But I said to him, that was a horrible thing to say. So in private, I said, that was a horrible thing you said. That was really embarrassing. And he got all mad. He goes, you know. And I thought, you know, that is not cool. I was not cool with that at all. And so I just kind of stopped dealing with him. I thought, you know what, I don't need this crap, you know, anymore. So he got mad at me then. And then when we went back home again, he moved into the basement. Really? Over something that was so trivial. He would not apologize because we were married 10 years, and never once did he ever apologize for anything he ever did. I always was the one who went back to him because I wanted to make amends, not because I was sorry, but because I don't want to fight. So I'd always be, it's okay.
And you're taught in an organization that if you're married, that's it. Make it work.
Yeah, fix it
no matter what.
Yeah. So he goes into the basement. Then he goes into the house and turns over all my pictures, so he doesn't have to look at my face.
Really?
Yeah. Over that. Oh, he's the one who
said this, the crappy thing.
Nasty that wasn't true. And then,
what a jerk.
Yeah, I thought, so I wasn't going to apologize. I thought, you know, I'm not apologizing. So 2 weeks goes by, and he doesn't have anything to do with me. I'd make dinner, he'd come up, grab the dinner, and go into the basement. And then I come home from work. Yeah, and I was happy because I'm chatting with these guys.
I think you're better off because then he didn't call you names and wasn't cruel to you.
Yeah, I was chatting up with whoever. I was having a good time. I was having fun online too. Like I'd post, anyways. It wasn't all bad. There were goofy things I was doing that I thought were really funny, but I won't. That'll just go off on another tangent. Yeah. But anyway, so then that's when he set up a spy program on our computer, and then because he thought, well, how come she's not apologizing to me, right? For 10 years, I'd always sucked it up, right? And now that he wondered what was happening. Anyways, he saw that I was carrying on a bit, and which isn't right. I'm not. But you know what? I don't even care anymore. I don't give. Whatever, it happened. I'm just going to put it out there. That's what happened. And he decided, instead of coming to me about it, he just went straight to the elders, which is ironic because he's barely going to the meetings anymore. And I was the one who was the pioneer and always trying to bring him in, crying that he's not, blah, blah, blah. And he's the one who goes to the elders about it. And then they, of course, contacted me to help me. They wanted to help me. And, of course, I fell for it. I said, okay, and can we meet with you? And they came over for, tea and cookie call. And but it was all to see if they have enough on me to put together a judicial committee. That's their idea of helping. Yeah. So next thing I know, I'm being called to a judicial committee. Can you just meet with 3 elders? I'm like, okay.
How about 2?
Yeah. No, there was 3. And this thing went on for hours, by the way. So we go to the Kingdom Hall. They have all these questions. I didn't deny anything. I just fessed up. Yes. And then this went on, and they had me reading bound volumes of these meetings. This went on for this was like a 2-hour meeting. I had to leave the room while they made a decision. But of course, when they said they called me back in the room, they hadn't made a decision. So they said, come back on, are you available Wednesday, a couple nights later? And I said, okay. So they came back because we couldn't make a decision. So I came back a second time, another long meeting. And and there was one elder that was quite elderly. Elder who was elderly.
Oh, that's appropriate.
And this went on for, he would open up this bound volume and say, read this. And I'd have to read like a page worth of this. Yeah. Wives about be in subjection and
be in subjection to the jerk. Gotcha.
Yeah. So that was happening, and I would read. And there's one elder who I liked the elders. I had no problem with them. And I really liked this one elder on my committee, and he would look like, he was disgusted. He was like, this meeting is going on way too long. Why are you making her read pages of bound volumes? He was like, But and I was feeling the same way. But anyways, I'm doing whatever I'm told. They gave me homework to read, and I read it all. Did you read it all? Yes, I read it all. Came back, and they said, we don't know if it's weakness or wickedness why you did what you did. And I said, well, it was weakness. And they said, what do you want us to do with you? And I said, I'd like you to show me mercy, because they knew all my problems with my health and problems with my husband. And
yeah, they knew what your husband was like. That's also what's annoying about it, what you've been putting up with for years.
But then then again, I had to leave the room, and they were going to make a decision, and then I'm sitting there for like half an hour, 45 minutes, and they call me back in, and again, they don't know what to do, hung jury or whatever, Yeah. So they said, can you come back another night? And I said,
apparently Jehovah's Spirit wasn't giving them a clear enough answer.
Maybe Satan was testing them.
Satan was testing them. He was throwing in something.
So they said, can you come back another night? And I said, you know what, can we just take a break? I don't even know what I'm doing in my life right now. I need a break to think about things. Nope, people are talking, apparently. People are talking. I didn't tell anybody, but my ex had blabbed it all over the universe. People were talking, and they needed to make a decision. So, all right, come back another night. Well, the last meeting was quite short, thankfully. And they just basically said, did you talk to this guy, one of these guys I was chatting with, since their last meeting? And I said, yeah. And they said, have you planned to meet him? And I said, no. And they said, if he came, because he was like 3-hour plane ride, no, sorry, a 5-hour plane ride away.
Thousands of miles away.
Of miles away. And they said, if he came to this city, would you see him? And I'm like, yeah. Wrong answer, okay? But I said, I'm honest, right? I'm like a freaking open book. Yes. And they're like, oh. And then they said something like, you can, we have no problem with you leaving your husband. We get it, that you want to leave him. He is a definite dud. But they said, spiritual dud. That's the word they use, spiritual dud.
Yeah.
But they said, but you can never remarry again. And they said, are you okay with that? And I said, no, I'm not. And again, ding, ding. No, it's not ding, ding. It's, wrong answer. So, but maybe I wanted them to disfellowship me. I don't know. I really don't know what to say. I wasn't trying for it. I was asking them.
Really, how do you disfellowship someone when they haven't committed the gross sin? Like, how does that even work? Like, I
know. At least let me commit it. Appeal.
That was just, there's so many extenuating circumstances.
Yeah. So they leave the room. And I left the room, and it was quite short this time. And then they said, okay, you're disfellowshipped, And the last words out of my mouth were, I'm sorry. And I just felt awful. And they said, you're free to go now. And I just kind of got up and tail between my legs and cried, and off I went.
Wait, there's one thing I think you told me a long time ago. I apologize if I missed it, but didn't you say that one of them said that we need to make an example out of you because she was known as a pioneer and had done so well, and that something happened that she had to be made an example of? Didn't he say that to you?
Yeah.
One of them?
Yes. Well, no, they said it to my dad. They said it to who was also an elder. My dad wasn't on my committee.
No, but he was
on the Kingdom Hall.
And he knew the story and the whole thing, and he was pretty mad at them.
Yeah. Right? Well, yeah, they wanted to make an example of me because I was well known in the city. It's not that big a city, Victoria, and I was always on the platform and in all the conventions and stuff, and people knew me, and anyways, yeah. So I drove immediately to my parents' house because I figured I better tell them first. So I drove to my mom and dad's place and I told them what happened, and my dad immediately got out a pad of paper. He said, "Oh, these are all the reasons why this happened. You got a crappy husband, you have health problems, and I'd been fasting. I did this different diet for my health, and he thought it was messing with my head." And anyways, long story short is he said, "We're never going to shun you." And then my mom pipes up and goes, "But we won't discuss religion with you." And I was like, woohoo! I'm not a fan. I'm like, it's the last thing I want to talk about is religion. And to this day, I'm, if someone says they're all big into religion, I'm okay. You can have a religion. That's fine.
But don't push it.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about it. I'm happy it's good for you. And I'm told I mean that. But I am done with all religions. I've never seen one that I agree with for me. But anyway, so that was great. And, but yeah, so then the shunning started immediately. And my ex and husband and I, we broke up at that point. I was like, and he couldn't, but he wanted to know if I said anything about him because I don't want to say it. I still don't want to say it. I don't online, but he was doing stuff that was quite bad. And he said, "I guess you told the elders about this." And I said, "No." And he goes, "What?" And I said, "No, it wasn't. It's not about you. It was about me. I was meeting about me. I wasn't there to throw you under the bus. What happened to me has nothing to do with you in this particular, what he's wanting to confess." And he goes, "Wow, you thought that was," he goes, "You're a really good person." Because he felt bad for having gone to the elders now and then fully expected me to rat on him, and I didn't. So he was quite taken aback with that. But anyway, so we split up. I ended up not knowing where to live at that point in time immediately. My dad wanted to buy me a condo to keep me in Victoria, but I wanted to move away because I knew the shunning would get pretty bad. But I did stay for almost a year. And there were people that I worked with that, like everyone in my office, it was an office of about 70 people. I worked for the government. And I liked the people I worked with, and I felt the same, that they liked me back a lot. And some of them offered, I didn't tell anybody right away that I was disfellowship. Everyone knew I was a witness. So I felt like this is a very bad witness to tell, I'm disfellowship. But I guess I was acting differently because I'm a happy person by nature and a chatty person. And people, I guess, noticed that I was not the same.
Something was wrong, yeah.
And one of the girls who I was somewhat close to, I was studying the Bible with her. As a witness, and there was a couple girls I was studying with in my office, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I didn't want to tell her. I knew it would stumble her. And finally she said, "Susan, just tell me what's something's bothering you. I can really see there's a problem." And finally I told her. And then and then of course word got out that I'm no longer, that this happened. And so many of my coworkers came up to me and said, "If you need a place to stay, you can stay with me," because they knew about the shunning.
Yeah, people are amazing. I'm telling you, people will help you out in ways you can't even imagine.
That was a big impact on me to realize that these people who I'd always kind of pushed away because they were worldly, were totally there for me. And this one guy I worked with said to me, "I can't believe your organization is shunning you." He goes, "I can't believe this is how they're handling it." He goes, so when you need them the most, they don't know how to handle it, right? Because they don't have any training whatsoever. No. And they themselves even said, "We don't know if this is weakness or wickedness." Which Jesus said, "I want mercy and not sacrifice." Yet their brainiac, Jehovah-led supposed spirit that guided them to say, "Meh, let's just cut her off. That's got to be the best
solution. We need to make
an
example of her."
Yeah, make an example of me. So, that really didn't sit right with me. One of the girls I worked with said to me, "I believe my God brought you out of this organization," because she always said it was a cult, even when I was a witness. And I thought that was interesting. And then there's the whole Bible study. So picture this. I had a lot of people I was studying the Bible with, and I didn't know what to do now, right? Because I'm disfellowshipped. And some of these people, I brought other witnesses with me. And then there were other studies, like the girls I worked with in my office. They weren't really in my territory, but they said, I'll only study if I can study with you. And so I sort of figured once they get to a point where they're a bit more spiritually mature, then I can pass them off to somebody who they, within the territory. And I was kind of trying to do that with one of them already. But the other people I was studying with, I was bringing other sisters in the congregation with. And what happened was one of the elders' wives who I was bringing with me took over the study then. And what happened was the study kept asking her, "Where's Susan?" Because I was the one who was studying. I was the one who was leading the study all the time. And she goes, "I don't know. I don't know what happened to her."
Liar.
And sorry, do you want to say something about that? About the whole how they're embarrassed about the disfellowship?
Oh, we've talked about before how some beliefs they don't tell people when you first start studying, because if you first start studying and you hear this, you'll have the natural reaction of horror with some of the beliefs. So they don't like talking about certain parts. You only find that later down the road when you're a little more indoctrinated, so you can understand it more and that you'll be okay with it.
Hi, can you imagine a witness going, "Ding dong, we're here to talk to you about how we disfellowship and shun our family members."
And anyone who leaves.
Yeah.
Hotel California, check out anytime you like.
I mean, of course not. They'd rather show you a picture of a panda bear. But the reality that you don't find out until many years later is that if you do want to leave this organization, you will be cut off and shunned, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, she didn't want to tell her the truth. The truth was I was disfellowshipped and I was now being shunned. And she knew very well where I was and exactly what happened. But she chose to lie and say, "I don't know anything about what happened to Susan." So this Bible student thought that was very odd. How could you not know? You two
because it is odd.
Yeah,
because it was a lie.
Exactly. She's like, "You guys appear to be friends, and how could you not know?" So it really bothered her, and she and I, we liked each other very much, but I didn't contact her at all because I knew she'd ask what happened, and I would have to tell her what happened, and I didn't want to stumble her. Right. So I decided not to say anything, but many months went by, and this time I'm now living with my brother, who's no longer a witness either, because he was so disgusted by what happened to me, and he was already he never bought into the whole thing, him and his wife. So they said, "Come and live with us," and so this Bible student tracked me down. She finally found me and she said, "Susan, I need to know what happened." And when I told her, I was like, "I don't want this to stumble you." She goes, No, you have to tell me," because I didn't want her to give up on her studying. But I just said, "This is what happened, okay?" And she's like, "What?" She goes, "I've been praying." She goes, "I've been wondering about this organization. They keep saying they're the truth. And I always had doubts about them. And I was praying to God to give me a sign. And now you're telling me this." And she goes, "That's it." So, of course, the next time this elder's wife went to study with her, she says, "I found out what happened to Susan, and I want nothing to do with this horrible organization." And that's not what I wanted to happen, right? No. I waited 6 months before, and she came to me, right? So then this elder's wife goes back to the congregation and says, "Susan is calling up all her former Bible students and slandering the organization," which is not at all what happened, right? And of course, my mom is in that same congregation, and she heard this, and she said, "That's not true," and she straightened her out. But again, you see, they have their own web of lies. They can't tell the truth to begin with about what happened to me. She lied in the first place, and then she goes around saying that I lied, and making me out to be this. She's now apostate. Now I'm not a big apostate like you, apparently, but I'm now an apostate, apparently. Even though anyways. So what ended up happening was I ended up meeting up with a guy that I knew who was a witness when we were teenagers. He saw me one day going for coffee with a bunch of coworkers, and he's like, "Hey," he's laughing. He goes, "I heard you got disfellowshipped," and he's no longer a witness. And he goes, "Hey, we gotta talk." He goes, "We gotta talk," and I'm like, "Okay," He goes, let's go for dinner. I'm like, "Okay." So we went for dinner. And yeah, it was wonderful to meet up with him because we were never close, really. We weren't in the same hall, but I always liked him. We used to play soccer with a bunch of other young people witnesses after the meeting on Sunday. And he was like, he said, "You have to read Ray Franz's books." He goes, "They're fantastic." And I was like, "No way."
Yeah, I was really leery about it too.
Terrified to read that.
Yeah. That was like the one thing I was like, I'll check out other things, but that's the one that I was first hesitant.
Marie Fran's book. Yeah. I said, he goes, I've got it in the car right now, you can read it. And I'm like, you can borrow it. And I'm like, no, I was so afraid to read his books because I just felt like I would read something that I'd never be able to forget, that would stay tattooed on my brain. And because I fully intended to go back to the organization, even though all this had happened, and I was seeing the hypocrisy and the shunning really bothered me, and the kindness of the worldly people and the cruelty of the witnesses, that meant a lot to me. But I still felt it was the truth, and I didn't want, to have read this. But he broke me down. He's like, no, it's not like that. You got to read it. And he started telling me things. And anyways, I said, okay, I'll take it. But I wasn't going to read it. But then, of course, my own curiosity got the better of me, and I started reading it. I was afraid for my brother to know that I had this book in the house, so I kind of had to read it secretly. But it just the main thing that got me with his book that was so fantastic was that he wasn't angry at all. It meant a lot to me to see that he's like, look, I was a governing body member, right? He's been through all levels of the organization, from pioneering to being a missionary to branch overseer to a governing body member. And I just felt like he's not angry at all. He's just saying, look, I've been there. I'm giving you this information. You can do whatever you want with this. It makes no difference to me what you decide to do with your life. But I feel I have information that you need to be privy to as well. And from there, make your own decision. And I thought, what a great way to say it. And that's the way I feel also, that, I was a happy witness, but I'm much happier to be out. Because now I feel like this is living my life, not that phony life I tried to live before, where I was getting depressed. I think it just comes with the territory. When you're in an organization that keeps promising you a paradise and keeps promising you things, because it's men promising it. They can't deliver on what they're promising. No, and eventually, they're not supposed to be. It's supposed to be someone else doing it. Yeah. And eventually you're going to get depressed because it's like someone saying, I'm going to give you, $100,000 or $1 million. And then, time keeps ticking and you're not getting your money. And they keep promising it. And then you die. What's that? And you never lived your life. And that's what Jehovah's Witnesses do. They never live their life because they're always expecting something 2 to 5 years from now. And it's never going to come because it's a man promising it. And they can't deliver on it. So they're going to keep on. Now the generation overlaps. They're going to keep coming up with stupidities to prolong this to another generation and another one. And so, anyways, can
I just would you mind just telling them about what happened with when you were staying with your brother and she was in the middle of an MS episode, so having trouble, you're living with your brother and what the people that came to his house? Oh yeah. So I'm living with my brother, and I'm not the picture of health. I'm having some issues and stuff, but I'm trying to work through them however I can. And then they had a couple of elders pop by saying that, and I was there. I could hear everything. I was I kind of went off into a room because I didn't know what to do. They kind of came unexpectedly, and they were saying that my brother really should kick me out of the house because I'm a bad seed or whatever. I'm now I'm disfellowshipped and I shouldn't be living with them. And my brother's like, she has problems. I mean, she needs help right now. And he didn't agree at all. And so the elder said, well, I have a brother who has been disfellowshipped for 15 years, and he got disfellowshipped for smoking. And he says, and I haven't spoken to him for 15 years. And he's all proud of this. And my brother's like, man, he goes, that's terrible. That's embarrassing. He goes, so you haven't spoken to your brother for 15 years because he smoked. He goes, that's horrible. And my brother basically showed them the door. He says, you know what? I'm not interested in this anymore. I don't need this. My sister needs me. I'm there for her. She was there for me when I needed help before, which is true. I took him in just when he needed a place. But, and then he felt he wanted to return the favor. And so he was helping me out. And it just, they're so cold. Callous and cold. Mm-hmm. So cold. No warmth at all. No compassion. No humanity.
Yeah. And people there was a girl who was a really close friend of mine who was a witness who worked in my building, and we'd go for lunch every Friday, and she was really funny. I mean, she'd say things like, "Is that your face or did your bum grow teeth?" Things like that.
our
we'd
wacky
laugh.
sense of humor. I
Yeah,
think that's funny.
It was funny. Every Friday we'd go for lunch and have a ball. And but as soon as I got disfellowshipped, I was waiting for a cab one day. I had a business meeting and I was waiting for the taxi to come pick me up to take me to the Parliament buildings. And I'm waiting in this alley kind of behind my building where the cabs would come pick you up. And she was late for work. She was always late for work. And she was coming towards me and she realized at the 11th hour that I was there. And this is like a dead end alley kind of thing. And she was like, you could see the look on her face of, Susan's, disfellowship, Susan is there. And so she didn't know what to do. And so she starts walking and going like this. And when she got close to me, she covered her eyes like this so she didn't have to see me, as if some gas was going to permeate towards her and kill her, It's just
stupid.
I don't know what she knows about me, it's this shunning kind of thing that it was very difficult. So I was happy to get out of the city and I looked for a way out and I ended up, there was that one guy that I met online. We did end up hooking up. It didn't work out with him, but I kind of viewed it as, he's living in a city that I always wanted to live in. And if it doesn't work out, by the time I figured that it's not going to work with this guy, I would find...
Have you be established.
Yeah, I'd be established. I can make my way out and stuff. And he turned out to be, not a good person, but his family was amazing, and that's who I lived with. And then as time went on, I began to just, like she said, I established my life and moved on. And I always, every morning I would wake up, though, and think about the witnesses. I kind of rehashed things a bit too much, I think, for a while there. Because I had to get it out of my system somehow. The problem is when you have family members who are still in the organization, there's always that, you can't just close the door on it. I would have loved to just close the door and moved on.
And some can, when their whole family leaves or their family's deceased or they don't have family, so they can completely start their life over again easily, which is great, but not everyone has that ability.
No, because then my father passed away and I missed it. I was on my way to go see him. I didn't know he was going to die. I thought he was given basically 18 months to live. And so I flew back home and he ended up passing away an hour before I got there, kind of thing. It was horrific. I loved my dad very much. He was always an amazing father. And he was getting fed up with the organization, I think. He didn't step down because I got disfellowshipped. But he had other issues with other things going on in the hall that he didn't agree with at all. And he was quite appalled by the things that were going on. I mean, he didn't ever say what happened, but he did say, you don't know what these people are doing. Because he'd sit through elders committees and he was just disgusted by some of the things that he saw happening. Yeah. And the way the elders were handling it. And he eventually ended up getting quite angry and he stepped down. And he was very bitter at the end there about the organization. And I remember, because he had prostate cancer and he'd had it for many years and it never progressed. For about 15 years he had it. But at the end there, it started growing again. And I would talk to my dad on the phone and he'd be going on about the elders and this was going on and that was going on. He was so mad. And I remember saying, I was actually, who was the one who's disfellowship, was trying to be more encouraging because I was bothered by the fact that he was so angry. And anyways, I was feeling like it was going to kill him, because he was getting up there in age and I didn't want him to die of cancer, but it seemed to be getting worse. And I didn't think it was healthy to be talking so angry, But I can't help feeling that had he lived a bit longer, he would have left the organization too. Because of the way things were going with him. But at any rate, we had his memorial, whatever you want to call it. And my mom, I felt really bad for my mom, but I tried to be there, in a way. She said, I'm so glad you're here, even though I was disfellowshipped and I was staying at her house. And this one sister who I always thought was a real busybody, she called my mom up and said, we're going to have a tea in the back of the Kingdom Hall, but Susan can't come. And my mom hung up and she goes, if Susan tries to come, we're going to have to all leave. And, I would have loved to have crashed that bloody, stupid old, tea, whatever you call it. But out of respect for my mom, I didn't. But when someone says that, I had no intention of going to her stupid tea. But because she barred me from it, I was like, really? I'm not allowed to go? It's in the Kingdom Hall. I can show up where I want, But because... out of respect for my mom, I didn't go. But my mom hung up the phone and she goes, I can't believe the hard-heartedness of some of these people.
Again, cold, callous, no humanity, no compassion. Disgusting.
And the looks I got from people there. There was one girl who I studied with who was there who had gotten baptized. And she's the only person who hugged me. she came up to me and she hugged me and she goes, "I'm so sorry about your dad." But everyone else just shunned me, you know. Thankfully, I had some family there who like my brother and his wife, who were no longer going to meetings. I had my grandparents there, and there was a few friends that showed up from work, and one of my other friends. I don't want to mention any names, but there was another who's now an XJW as well, and loved her, still do love her. She's an amazing person, and she was there to support me. And she and I went out for a drink, which was nice afterwards. But yeah, just the shunning. You're at your dad's memorial funeral thing, and barely mentioned him, of course.
The funerals are just, again, an advertisement for the religion. They have really nothing to do with the person.
Yeah, it was an awful experience.
Sad.
Very awful experience. And it's still I oddly enough, I still intended to go back at some point. I don't know what my thoughts were. I kind of felt like if you're a witness, you got to live as a witness, and if you're not, if you're in the world, enjoy the world, right? There are things to enjoy in the world, right? And that's the way I decided to live my life. I wasn't going to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So I don't know if I was thinking I would just recant on my deathbed or what I thought. You know, at some point I thought I'd come back, but I wanted to just live my life. You know, so I was. And when I got back home after my dad passed away, it hit me. I'm going to die. Like, for the first time, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die.
Came face to face with mortality, which is something witnesses don't do. I think a lot of us had a hard time with that.
Yeah.
When we realized the end's not coming.
Yeah, so it was really hard to face that. But anyways, I ended up meeting my wonderful husband who, because at that point, I just wanted to live my life and enjoy it and stop thinking about things. So I tried to just forget everything. And I met my husband, who's an amazing person, not a witness, of course. And met a lot of great people. I connected with Andrea, who we didn't really know each other while we were witnesses.
Yeah, we do.
We knew of each other.
We talked before, which is we'd really just met. But we had a lot of
great talk. You know,
mutual friends that we both were really close to. So it feels like we were both there at the same time.
Yeah, I knew a lot about her because the girl who I was best friends with loved Andrea. I thought the world of Andrea was up here, you know?
Yeah, Andrea's pedestals are a dangerous thing. It leaves farther for people to crash. I've never been into people being put on pedestals.
No,
I never want to be on one. I never want to be on one.
Not a good thing, but
no, they're not.
But anyways, yeah. So then, but you know, it's still always in you, ingrained in you, and I always found myself gravitating towards finding out more answers about the organization and what things that they had done. And it wasn't until I stumbled across the XJW Recovery web group in Facebook where I started listening to other people's stories, and this is where I really woke up. When I thought my story felt bad because it was somewhat traumatizing to me. I didn't lose my family, but there was always still a bit of, it's not the same when you've got a family who's feels ashamed that now that you're disfellowshipped, you know? Yeah, so seeing all the different stories that came from so many different people that were actually way worse than anything I ever went through. I mean, we're talking wives that were abused, children that were abused sexually.
Yeah, and the wives take them away from the husband, and then they somehow end up being the ones disfellowshipped.
Yeah, and it was consistent. And it was like, you can't say, you know, I mean, we saw a lot of things in my congregation. We were always told, oh, they're just imperfect people. Funny how when it's a Jehovah's Witness doing it, they're just imperfect. But when it's the world, oh, look how bad the world is. Satan is so bad in the world, and all these other religions are so horrible. Mm-hmm. And yet our organization, we're supposed to have rose-colored glasses on. And, you know, there's nothing that Jehovah's Witnesses organization can ever do that's justified for leaving, right? Everything they do is, well, they're just imperfect. Why are you being so critical? Why are you angry and bitter? And it's not that at all. The bottom line is, and I like to say this, not that I'm a big believer in all this anymore, but I do believe this, that as Jesus said, it's bad fruitage. When you've got a tree that produces rotten fruitage, it's because the tree is rotten, and JW.org is rotten. That's the problem. And it's not just one congregation or a dozen congregations, it's worldwide.
Yeah, when you start putting all these isolated incidents all together, it's everywhere.
And it's through social media that this is coming out now, right? Yeah, because now you can talk to each other. When you're disfellowshipped, they want you to be isolated. They want you to feel alone. You can't talk to anybody, right?
Go away quietly. Don't talk about anything.
You know, and it's like, and Anyway, so I was just being compounded with all the problems that people have, and how it sounded all the same problem, but 20 times over. And this is how the elders handled it, and none of it was exaggerated, because I know you've been in the congregation. I was in there for 30 years. Okay, you know how things are handled. You know when someone is lying, and I didn't detect anybody lying, because everything they said was exactly the same formula, the same way the elders handled it, or mishandled it. And I'm not saying the elders did badly. I mean, my father was an elder, and I really believe that he was genuine. And there's other elders that are genuine.
There's lots of great elders out there too.
Yes, I'm not trying to say that they're all horrible.
No.
But what I am saying is that they're all horrible. No, what I'm saying is that
there's a systemic problem. There's something bigger going on here. They're just a symptom. The bad eggs are just a symptom of the carton.
Yeah. And that they're all, and that this organization is not being led by God at all. There's no sign at all that Jehovah, or whoever you want to call, is behind this at all. So that just led me to, it was a real awakening. And slowly but surely I decided I wanted to try to help people, because you'd read these stories that just broke your heart.
I know.
The way people were treated and how they have nobody in their life, and it just tugs at your heartstrings, and you're like, I'm here. I can talk to you. You're not a horrible person. You're a normal person who had normal feelings, and were cut off by a wicked, disgraceful organization who has some nerve cutting people off when they themselves are massive hypocrites. They'll disfellowship you for joining the YMCA. Well, they are joined to the UN, the United Nations, for 10 years. And then, of course, when it gets discovered, it's a library card. Well, that's no excuse. So I joined the YMCA to get a library card. Would that excuse me from being disfellowshipped? And it wasn't for a library card. We all know you didn't have to. The UN even said you didn't have to join to get a library card. Liars. So this is the kind of hypocrisy that just annoyed me to death. And then anyways, the more research I did, the more I realized, wow, this is a massively disgraceful organization.
It's deceptive. It's very deceptive.
And just how they have influenced and ruined people's lives. I mean, they have left behind trails of damaged people. I can name off a half a dozen people right now who committed suicide, who were members of his organization. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Let's not talk about the abuse. Let's not talk about the wives who were abused. Let's not talk about the people who died through blood transfusions.
Transplants.
And transplants who died when they should have had it and they denied it. Yeah. All the years that have been spent in prisons because they were upholding stupidities that the organization now has taken back and said, well, and then when they worded in their own watchtower, I don't think it was a watchtower, but I can put up the link so you can see what I'm talking about. But they came back in one of their publications and said, was it wrong on Jehovah's part to do this? And it's like, and now they're trying to blame Jehovah for it.
Yeah.
Jehovah he's probably laughing up there saying, oh my God, you guys, well, oh my God. Jehovah was saying, but thinking, how dare you blame me for it? They can never take responsibility. And this is why I make my videos, okay? It's to expose them, because I don't like people or organizations who try to hide who they really are. I have always been an open book. And when I see people trying to hide behind their lies, I'm like, no, not going to happen. And then try to blame it on the victims. And then try to help the victims themselves, to try to say, you've been duped by a scam, but there's a fantastic world out there that you can enjoy now. Yeah. Put these liars behind and move on and enjoy your life. And it's for those reasons I make my videos. So that's my story. It's not, it's not going to be in a movie or anything. It's not that exciting, but that's basically what happened to me and why I feel the way I do. And, I was always taught to be very, I've always been very, what's the word when you're like
forthright?
Yeah, excitable and determined to tell the truth, because, we had the truth, and I was very into it when I was in it. And I remember that even the organization saying that they don't want wishy-washy people, because wishy-washy worldly people become wishy-washy witnesses. Well, I was not a wishy-washy witness. I was in full bore. And now that I'm out, I'm the same, right? I'm the same person. So now that I'm out and I see the lies, I'm the
same person, but more informed, more educated.
And I'm going to be just as strong now that I'm out to expose them now for what they've done to people, you know?
Yeah.
And it's with the intention, not so much of doing evil to the organization, but to help people to come out, because you are being duped. It is a scam, you know, and you're going to die never having lived your life. And I mean, David Cassidy said it well. David Cassidy just died.
Yeah, that's not funny.
Not that I was a big...
Laughing.
No, we're not laughing at that. We're laughing at what what he had said before he died was so much wasted time. It breaks my heart when he had a family that he was basically estranged to, because he got involved with drugs and maybe alcoholism. I'm not sure. It was either drugs or alcoholism, or maybe both. I don't know. But he didn't have anything to do with his family. His daughter, who was in a show I really like, Arrow, and I really like.
On a side note.
On a side note, pumping Arrow. No. It's so sad to think that you haven't been around your family. And on his deathbed, at the age of, I think he's only like 67 when he died.
Yeah, he's young.
You know, he said so much wasted time. There are so many families that are shunning non-witness members anymore. You know, ones who have left the organization, they're shunning them because they're not part of their corrupt apostate organization. And yet, you know, these ones are eventually going to die. And it's like, why? Why not be with your family? Why not enjoy them? And it just breaks my heart to think that you're going to be on your deathbed one day, and are you going to say what David Cassidy said? So much wasted time. I don't want, and that's why I want to say to people, don't stop it. Don't listen to these men, these corrupt men. They have their own agendas, and it's not to serve God, you know, or in their own wacky way. They're messed up, you know.
But, and again, in fairness, a lot of them, they truly believe what they're saying. I think some of them have realized it over the years, but they do believe it. It's not like they're purposely trying to deceive. Some of them are.
Yeah, I can't read their hearts. All I know is what I see, right? And and I'm not saying, because I can't read their hearts, but all I know is that the organization is corrupt. Even if they have duped themselves to believe that it isn't.
Still.
You know, it still is what it is. Yeah, so... So anyways, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Thank you for sharing it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Okay. And anyways, we'll see you in other videos that we will make together, and videos that I'll make by myself, and videos that you... Okay, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.